Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby playing in a tank with QuickyBaby playing while QuickyBaby also commentates over the gameplay. This is a weird one. What's up, ladies and gents? Hope you're well. Yeah, I've put my QuickyBaby commander, I think, in an Object 277, and I'm also using them in my Object 279E. And so enjoy the voice acting throughout this replay. Hopefully there'll be some one-liners occasionally. I should know, I wrote them, right? Today, I'm going to be playing in a joke of a tank. This is the Object 279E, and frankly, Wargaming's lack of action to do something about this over the 3 years or so that we've had this monstrosity in the game also kind of makes them a joke, really. There is absolutely no purpose for this vehicle, which completely lacks a lower plate, to be in the game in any shape or form in its current situation. I barely play this thing. I think I've played it maybe like 100 or a couple of hundred times over the years that I've had it. Usually when everyone in Twitch chat is saying, oh, play the 279E, or voting for it on my poll website to actually force me to play the tank, right? I guess maybe occasionally I've taken out onto the battlefield in Ranked in the first season that I managed to have this vehicle, and I got one of my best finishes in Ranked. I think I finished in the top 200 players on the European server back then, purely because I had a vehicle that was better than everyone else. I don't usually end up that high up the leaderboard, but I did when I had the same vehicle that all of the tryhards were using, right? These days, however, you can't use this vehicle inside the most competitive form of World of Tanks, thank goodness. Otherwise, it basically just becomes Object 279Es sitting opposite each other, firing premium rounds at each other's weak points. This vehicle is just the definition of you'd have to be terrible to not actually succeed in a vehicle like this. You'd have to actually be awful at the game to not completely dominate. You can play like a complete idiot and still have such an advantage against your opponents, and to force them to have to come after you that, oh my gosh, hearing myself is already distracting me. You'd have to be so awful if you can't do well in this tank, is what I'm trying to suggest, because it's just so statistically strong. The secret to doing well in the 279E is always making sure you're actually lifting the front of the vehicle to stop your opponents from being able to have a nice flat shot into your tank. Now in this kind of a scenario, I'm a little bit awkward, so you always see that I always try and get into a position where, yeah, low roll indeed, Quacky Babs. It's really weird hearing myself and not trying to interrupt myself right now. You always find yourself in a situation where you want to try and raise the front of the tank, because if you raise the front of the tank, you make it so that the front of your vehicle is not flat. Now, usually in a vehicle, raising your vehicle would make your lower plate absolutely horrendous, or it would give you a bit of an issue with the front of your tank. Oh, come on, come on. Why did I just let QuickyBaby take over for a second?
At least they can now go and pick a better tank.
Like mine, maybe, Quacky Babs. Maybe, maybe. Floor it? Okay.
That was a great shot.
See, what you all don't realize is this is the real reason I went into the game, so I could basically just sit back and do my own commentary.
Better, closer, warmer.
Perfect, yes. I mean, what's this IS-32 to do? I'm basically juggling multiple heavy tanks at the same time. And I can tell you that WZ-111-5A is a very good player. In fact, they've got 62% wins overall on their account. And I can feel it. And that's why I'm focusing them down while kind of just ignoring this IS-32. I've managed to block 4,300 damage up on this tank. He bounces me again. I'm going to put one into them, but obviously I don't want to let this WZ-111-5A come and get more shots into me, because I look at them as the significant threat. And I think they realize it as well. In this situation, I probably shouldn't charge the WZ-111-5A, but I really wanted to just kill them. You know what I mean? I just wanted to get them out the game because I wasn't really worried about the IS-32. Unfortunately for me, the WZ-111-5A is going to get an extra shell in as we manage to shut them down. But luckily now the IS-32, if they want to chase me, they're going to get shot by my allies. They managed to shoot my tracks because I don't have a lower plate. They don't damage my vehicle. We get my tracks back on and we manage to chase this vehicle and finish. Exactly, a predictable outcome when you've got a vehicle that just basically means that you could be absolutely awful at this game and still do very well. But look, even with an overpowered tank here, I was still kind of happy about this situation. I am literally holding back about a third of the enemy team in equal and one tier below tanks. while also dealing with the WZ-111-5A player is a very, very decent player indeed. And we're now up to nearly 7,000 damage. And as long as I can keep my hull slightly wedged up like this, there's nothing they can do. And this is what you have to do in your Object 279E. Just wedge the front up, and then they have to try and find the weak point on top of your tank. And more often than not, you're not going to be able to hit the smallest of small cupolas on top of this vehicle. Well, it looks like this Kampfpanzer doesn't stop for anything as well. Alright, let's see if we can finish off the Kunstpanzer now as they're trying to flank us. And it looks like they think, well, maybe I don't want to get myself isolated here and I should hide behind the 50 TP, but that's actually the worst thing that he could have done. He needed to keep flanking me, and then he would have maybe put one shot into me before I finish off their vehicle. That was a misplay. Bit of a poor aim shell there. I should have aimed a little bit lower into the 60 TP, but luckily for me, it looks like my Skoda T50 is coming around. Am I going to go for this 50 TP, or am I going to go for the Kunstpanzer? Luckily, the ridiculous side armor, it did look painful. It's looking pretty painful for the enemy team here, Mr. QuickyBabs, as we put yet another round into the lower plate. Now, having fired all of my regular rounds, having dealt like near 8,000 damage, we're now up to 9,400, and there's still 7,000 hit points on the enemy team. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, having dealt 9,400 damage in the first 6.5 minutes of this battle, one thing was happening, apart from the obvious, just realizing that it didn't even really feel kind of that special because it's the vehicle that's doing the work and not yourself. Walking 7,200 and pretty much, for the most part of it, like a 1 versus 2 scenario or a 1 versus 3 scenario. What was happening in this game was my 60 TP was sweating. Right, it was only just a month ago on my birthday that I released a video showing my first 10,000 damage game in a tech tree tank. And so right now, my 60 TP was probably rocking backwards and forwards in my garage going, oh no, he's not going to replace me. He's not going to become the second vehicle that QB gets 10,000 damage in. And is it going to become the new damage record on my account? Welcome back, Big Joe. I say... I'm not sure if you noticed, but Big Joe in their E100 was AFK for quite a large amount of the battle. And to be fair, you know, when you're in a vehicle like this, you probably don't mind when a couple of your tanks are AFK. 1 versus 29 becomes a distinct reality when your statistics are as strong as this. You know, you've got the DPM 2,500 base, you've got the reasonable accuracy at 0.36, you've got the aim time, you've got the gun handling with 0.06 dispersion on the turret, meaning that you really don't need to use vertical stabilizers. That penetrating high explosive round now means we're at 1,846. So as long as we hit this shell, we should be at 9,999. But oh dear, it actually doesn't go well. Luckily, my armor manages to hold up against the gold round there from the CS-59. The Skoda finishes them off, and this Leopard seems to be trying to make some pesky plays against us. We're up to 5 kills, 1 away from the top gun, and there's still 2,353 hit points left on the enemy team. So even if I do 200 damage, I will actually be setting a new damage record for my account. But let's see, let's deal with this Leopard first. We're going to come around the corner, snapshot into their vehicle. It did look painful, and then unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you're looking at it, we've got a Conqueror left, and they fall. So, phew, I don't have to deal with having the Object 279E as the damage record on my account. I'm far happier that it still remains in a 60 TP and not this overpowered joke of a tank that really just shouldn't exist inside the game in its current form. And a sigh of relief. But once again, it adds to another vehicle this year. I think it must be up to about like 8 or 9 different vehicles now, where I've been getting the biggest damage I've ever got consistently inside World of Tanks. Look, this was just a ruffle stop. It was QB being the commander, being played by QB, just crunching through the enemies, really. And it's not like they had too many opportunities. The only time we lost hit points is when we had to sacrifice those hit points to be able to get rid of vehicles, usually in 2 versus 1 scenarios. And outside of good shots towards the top of the vehicle here that aren't really visible as soon as the vehicle finds itself with any chance to elevate the front of the tank. Your enemies don't really stand too much hope outside of tier 10 tank destroyers or some reward vehicles just clunking through premium rounds at this thing's armor. But let me give you just a quick rundown about how to deal with this tank. Alright, it's complicated. Get its side. Sacrifice your hit points, get its side, and just keep pummeling it. Or get behind it, shoot it in the butt. Apart from that, your options are, it does have a cupola up here, which is hittable. But be warned that good 279E drivers are not going to let you get above the vehicle where it's going to be an issue. Your next best opportunity against this tank is if it angles like this, you want to shoot it right on the front of the hull, right about here at the flattest plate. It looks a bit weird, right? When the vehicle angles like this, you think, oh, lower plate, lower plate, lower plate. Maybe the side armor because it kind of looks flat. No, just shoot this area here, the flattest part, and load gold because these tanks, they don't have a soul. They don't deserve any kind of mercy from them, from you. And trust me, they aren't going to show you any mercy because the kind of player who takes this tank out onto the battlefield is the kind of player who just wants to farm. They want to play with an advantage, and frankly, they're just looking at you like another snack on the battlefield. So do everything that you can to give yourself a chance. And also, do you know what would be better? If we actually, as a community, started to put real pressure on wargaming to nerf pieces of trash like this that shouldn't exist in its current form. Wargaming could make a whole series of changes to this vehicle to put it into a better position. Number one, shave 5 kilometers an hour off its top speed. Number two, why did they give this thing a field mod to allow it to also increase its top speed by a further 4 kilometers? They could reduce its view range, or easier, make it less accurate and give it worse DPM. It baffles me that an Object 705A has to suffer in the game with 2,154 DPM, but oh no, the Object 279E, that thing can have very competitive damage per minute that's only just a touch below other vehicles like the Super Conqueror. Other ways to fix this tank are just to overall lower its frontal armor by about 10 to 20 millimeters. That would allow standard rounds to have a chance to be able to go through it rather than having to load gold when the 279E isn't raising up the front of the tank, and even then it's impervious to it. Or just make the cupola just a little bit taller and give a real weak point to aim at on the vehicle. But until then, the best players who are actually able to get through a whole series of toxic missions will be able to take this toxic tank out onto the battlefield and ruffle stomp their opponents one by one until they feel oh so good about themselves and oh, I did that 9,900 damage. I got those 6 kills and that ace tanker in this vehicle, as well as also blocking 7,200 damage and enough to kill a mouse multiple times. But at this point, it really doesn't matter what I say as a content creator or a contributor who has dedicated themselves to this community over 10 years, because what Wargaming are going to do with reward tanks and their inexplicable impotence at being able to actually deal with these disgusting vehicles on the battlefield just makes it feel like at this point I'm flogging a dead horse. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And just to give you a heads up that if you want to get me in the game, it is still possible completely for free by tuning into my Twitch stream, claiming the drops every Monday and Friday, and completing your missions in game. I think there's still enough time to be able to get 2 completely for free. And as it's Sunday, I'm going to be going live right now with the World of Tanks Tech Tree Showcase, and this week I'm going to be featuring what is currently top of the tree and my most played tank, the M48A5 pattern. So if you want to see why it is my most played tank and why I love the flexibility of the American mediums as we go up the tech tree, then come along right now and I'll show you what they're all about. Also, getting more people closer to having a terrible QuickyBaby inside their garage as well. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.